The day started with an unease I couldn't quite shake. The air felt heavier, the usual hum of the ether tinged with something darker, colder. Lysara noticed it too. Her normally calm expression was edged with tension. "The shadow stirs," she said, her voice low. "It must have felt the completion of your rite. We must be vigilant." I nodded, gripping the shard that now hung from a cord around my neck. Since the rite, it had become a part of me, its energy steady and reassuring. But even its light seemed muted today, as if the shadow's presence was pressing down on it. The trouble started when we reached a small village nestled in the hills. We'd planned to stop there for supplies before heading back to the city, but as we approached, the air grew colder. The village was eerily silent, no signs of life except for the faint creak of shutters swinging in the wind. Lysara held up a hand, signaling me to stop. "Stay close," she whispered, her eyes scanning the empty streets. As we stepped into the village square, I saw it, the corruption. Black tendrils snaked across the ground and up the walls of buildings, pulsing faintly with the same sickly light I'd seen in the ruins. The air smelled sour, like decay and something chemical. "They've been here," Lysara said grimly. "Who's they?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't answer, but I didn't need her to. A low growl echoed from one of the alleyways and my heart jumped. Slowly, the creatures emerged, twisted forms, vaguely humanoid but with elongated limbs and faces distorted into grotesque masks of rage. The shadow had arrived. "Stay behind me," Lysara ordered, drawing her weapon, a blade that shimmered with etheric light. But the creatures didn't wait. They surged forward, their movements jerky and unnatural. Lysara moved like a dancer, her blade slicing through the first wave with precision. But there were too many. I gripped the shard around my neck, feeling its warmth spread through me. The pulse of the ether was faint but steady, like a drumbeat in the distance. "Focus," I muttered to myself. "Guide it, don't force it." I raised my hand, just as I'd done during the rite, and let the ether flow. A barrier of light sprang up in front of us, stopping the creatures in their tracks. They hissed and clawed it, but the barrier held. Lysara spared me a quick glance, a flicker of approval in her eyes. "Good, now push them back." I didn't hesitate. With a burst of effort, I sent the barrier surging outward, knocking the creatures off their feet. They writhed on the ground, their forms flickering like static, before dissolving into black mist. The battle didn't end there. More creatures poured out of the alleys, their numbers seemingly endless. Lysara and I fought side by side, her blade cutting through the corruption while I used the ether to create barriers and blasts of light. But the shadow wasn't done with us yet. The air grew colder still, and a new figure emerged from the darkness. It was taller than the others, its form more defined. It wore a tattered cloak that seemed to shift and writhe like smoke, and its eyes burned with a cold, malevolent light. "You," it said, its voice a low, echoing growl. "The one who carries the shard. You will not leave this place alive." The air around it twisted, and black tendrils shot toward me. I raised a barrier, but the force of the attack was unlike anything I'd felt before. The barrier cracked, and I was thrown backward, landing hard on the cobblestones. "Nico!" Lysara shouted, darting to my side. I struggled to my feet, gripping the shard tightly. The figure was still advancing, its tendrils ripping through the ground as it moved. I could feel its power, cold and suffocating, pressing down on me like a physical weight. But I wasn't going to run. I reached for the ether again, drawing on everything I had. The shard flared to life, its light blazing brighter than ever. The shadow figure hesitated, its movements faltering. "You think you can defy me?" it snarled, its voice filled with rage. "I don't think," I said, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at me. "I know." With a surge of effort, I unleashed the shard's power. A wave of pure light erupted from my hand, slamming into the shadow figure and sending it reeling. The light burned away the corruption, tearing through the tendrils and dissolving the lesser creatures around it. The figure let out a guttural roar before retreating, its form dissolving into mist. When the battle was over, the village was silent once more. The corruption had vanished, leaving only the empty streets and a faint chill in the air. "You did well," Lysara said, placing a hand on my shoulder. "But this was only the beginning. The shadow knows your strength now, and it will come for you again." I nodded, still catching my breath. The shard was dim now, its energy spent, but I could feel the connection to the ether more strongly than ever. As we left the village, I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of pride and dread. I'd faced the shadow and survived, but I knew Lysara was right. This was just the start, and the next time it came I might not be so lucky.